Good morning, everyone. Brian Fish here this morning with you. Thanks for getting on the call. Today I'm going to talk about comparison. So last night I was really for a lot of the day yesterday, I was wondering what I was going to talk about today and I just couldn't come up with something. And as I kept thinking about it, one of the topics that I feel like really deters people and ends up being the catalyst for why people quit this business is getting trapped in the game of comparison. I just really kind of have it on my heart to want to share my thoughts about that, um, and how comparison can really be a negative force and can end up being the thing to drive somebody away from doing this business. So I just want to address it and talk about it. Um, the quote that I put on the post last night was comparison is the thief of joy. And I think that's really true. And when I talk about comparison in this business, it's kind of two, double faceted. The first can be comparing your results with the products. You know, we compare somebody has an amazing weight loss story or an amazing performance story, and ours just doesn't stack up to it. We compare ourselves to that, and we let that bring us down. And then obviously on the business side, comparison is nonstop. And the point I want to make is that we are always presented with other people's highlight reels, and we compare that to our own reality, not our own highlight reel. So it's almost impossible to stack up when we do that. Um, let's just put it out there right now. Let's talk about Laura Stevens. So Laura Stevens is getting a lot of attention. She's being talked about a lot from Isagenix all over the place. Her business results are absolutely phenomenal, almost unbelievable. The amount of crystal executives she has produced is absolutely staggering in the amount of time that she has done it. Every single one of us, if we compared ourselves to her, could get discouraged because her results seem so impossible. My contention this morning is to say, do not play that game. Do not get in the comparison game. Do not start stacking yourself up against people with the most amazing results, the top 0.5% of all people. You just cannot do it. So as I kept thinking about comparison, I started thinking of it in the opposite way too. So sometimes people compare themselves against those who are not doing as well as they are in an effort to build themselves up. And I had a lot of employees in my former career that would do this. So their way of making themselves feel good or to build themselves up was to compare themselves to those who weren't as good as they were, at least in their mind. And that was their way of feeling good about themselves. So it can go both ways. And both ways are a sign of weakness. Do not compare yourself to make yourself feel better. And don't compare yourself as a way to knock yourself down. I think those are important things to keep in mind. So what makes us compare? Because to be honest, really, we all do it. It's almost impossible to avoid having some of those feelings of comparison. And, it comes from a place of judgment, resentment, jealousy, and insecurity. And every single one of us judges, every single one of us sometimes has resentment, sometimes feels jealousy, and sometimes feels insecurity. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have those feelings because they're probably impossible to completely avoid. So it's totally normal. So what we have to do is recognize those feelings when we have them and let them pass by. Recognize and let them pass. Do not hold on to those feelings. So when I was in college, one of my really good friends, when we would have a class together, she would always, we'd have like a hard test or something, and when we'd get our test results back, she would always ask me how I did. And whenever I got a better grade on the test than she did, the first thing that she would say is, "I hate you." And she said it in a joking way, but it was a really came from a place of insecurity, that somebody did better than she did on a test. And it was just a sign of an insecurity and a jealousy. And it was kind of an ugly side that came out instead of celebrating a friend who did well on a test. So the trick is, yeah, you might have those feelings, that initial feeling, but then let it go. So instead, we need to really live from a place of gratitude. Live an attitude of gratitude. It's amazing what that does. It's a lesson I've been learning over the last year, is to really be grateful for so many things. And when you're grateful, it's hard to be resentful of others. Celebrate others' successes. And sometimes, and do this sometimes, trick yourself and fake it. If you're not feeling it and you don't want to celebrate somebody else's success, do it anyway. Make yourself do it. And in fact, go out of your way to specifically congratulate that other person for their success. Because if you keep doing that, it'll start to sink in as something that really feels good. And then another trick with someone else's success, along with celebrating it, is to learn from it. So write that person a message and say, "Hey, great results. I'm so happy for you. Hey, can you shed some light on maybe how you did it? Can you give me a secret about where your success came from?" That way you can make it a learning experience too. But the key here is just to eliminate judgment. Don't judge somebody else's highlight reel and compare it against yourself. So on my post last night, I said that I wanted to give some insight on how you can avoid this. And I really think that the answer in simple terms is self-development. And so many times, all the successful people in Isagenix say that the key to their success is self-development. And you just keep hearing that over and over and over again. And you start wondering, well, what's the big secret to self-development? And the idea is that the more you develop yourself, the more you build confidence, the more you teach yourself vulnerability and realize that vulnerability is a strength, and that vulnerability is the cornerstone to confidence. I was watching a Brene Brown video the other night. She was sitting with Oprah Winfrey, and they were talking about vulnerability and how we all grow up thinking that vulnerability is a sign of weakness, and that the real secret is that vulnerability is strength. And Oprah said, vulnerability is the cornerstone to confidence, and confidence leads to success. So when you go through a self-development process, you slough away your insecurities. Those insecurities were the things that were making you compare yourself to others in the first place. So self-development helps build belief in yourself, and when you fully believe in yourself, you stop comparing yourself to others, or you greatly reduce the amount that you're comparing yourself. The other thing that self-development does is it helps you create your own path. Once you create your own path, you're way less likely to compare your story to others, because you have a clear purpose and a clear definition of what your path is, and you honor it. It's way harder to compare yourself to others because you realize that they are on their own path. And you are the only person in the world who is on your path and on the exact same place and same moment on your path as you are. So how could you possibly be comparing yourself to somebody who's on a different path than you in a different point of time than you? That's comparing apples to oranges. It just doesn't make any sense. So it doesn't get you anywhere to compare when you realize that everybody's on their own path and everybody's in their own moment of time on their path. And then if you have total belief in your path, you're way less likely to pay attention to what other people are doing. So I just want to share kind of an acronym for you that I got from Tony Robbins called the RPM, which is the Rapid Planning Method. So this is kind of the way of defining your path. So the R in RPM is for results. So the very first step in this is to really say to yourself, what do I want? What results do I want? And start with the results. Don't start with how am I going to do it? What are the action steps I'm going to take? No, start with what do I want? And then ask for it and ask intelligently. Put it out into the universe. So this is basically goal setting. This is putting it out specifically, intelligently, asking what your desire is and have clarity in that ask. So put it out there on what do I want? What are the results that I want? That's the first step in creating your path. The second one is your purpose. So that's your why. Why are you doing this? Have a real compelling draw and pull on why you're going after the results that you just said you wanted. And then the M is for massive action. So that's putting together an actual plan of the action steps that it's going to take to get you down your path. So if you get fully immersed into your own path, your own results, your own purpose, your own massive action, you don't have time to compare yourself to others because you realize that you are on your own path and there is no benefit to comparison. So as I was thinking about, why do we compare, or when do we find ourselves comparing ourselves more? And obviously it's in times when we're not doing well. And in this business, those times are often, it's an up and down business, but for the most part, we're struggling. We feel like we're not getting anywhere, and it can get discouraging. And I think those times when we feel that the most is obviously when we start playing this comparison game, which then is a trap and then makes us feel worse and then puts us down into a bigger hole, and it's harder to climb out of when we start mentally getting into this mode of comparing. And I really thought about, okay, well, when do we get into this the worst? And the worst time when we're comparing ourselves is when we're lost, when we don't feel like we're on a path, when we've forgotten what our path is, when we forgot what we're going after and why we're going after it and what those massive action steps are. So it's grounding ourselves, getting back to that, and that's why this all goes back to self-development. Are we putting out there what we're going after? And the more locked in on that we are, the less likely we are to fall into the trap of comparison. So that's my message today. I hope it could help in any possible way. A couple announcements. The Welcome Home Challenge is still going on till the end of the year. If that's something that you've been going after, keep going after it. I think these last couple weeks of the year are going to be like a wild frenzy, so keep going after that. If you haven't, pull out the point system for the Welcome Home Challenge anyway and make it a game and see how many points you can get from now till the end of the year. I think it's a good way to kind of spur some action. The other announcement is that on Saturday we're having the team training event in Woodbury. Please check it out. If you're not already planning on going, take a look at it and see if you can make it happen and bring someone with you. I think it's going to be a really good value-added day. So that's all I've got for this morning. I appreciate you being on the lines, and I did video this, so maybe I will post it later today. Everybody have a great day. Thanks. Bye.
To stop conference recording, press 1. To return to session.